Thanks, carried. Against, carried, none. Good, carried, yeah. Right, number 12. Local water done well, service delivery model. Sam's happy to move and Tim's more than happy to second. Don't let me put words in your mouth, I'm more than happy to suggest that we put it, but does anyone want to hear what's going on? Because we've done a lot of work.
Been briefed.
Right.
Last week. Yeah.
Yeah, we don't. Give us a brief outline.
Yeah, there's really the report stands on its own merits. There's been multiple briefings and information.
Discussion. Okay.
Yeah.
Paul?
Debate.
Look, just really briefly, thank you for all the work on this, and that the submitters were clearly in council, and I think, and it also means that our residents continue to have that close contact with elected members, decision makers and staff if they've got any issues around their water services delivery. So I'm really comfortable with putting this in with our model and as our primary option, and to continue with delivering the water in-house ourselves, and I think we're doing. I'll be supporting this today, so thank you.
Okay, so I got a little excited and ahead of myself. Brent, sorry, there was a question from Sarah. Oh, and Yanni, yep.
Thanks so much. While I'm in favour of the proposal, what structures are in place? So in theory, government was setting this up to ensure that water improves over time and that funding is there available to do it. With political decision making and sort of short, electoral cycles, those kind of things, and LTPs, sometimes funding gets pushed out and work doesn't happen, which is why we're in the state we're in nationally. What structures have the government put in place to ensure that the work actually does happen and doesn't get deferred?
So there's councillor, there's two significant monitoring regimes. There's to see that we meet the requirements under the new bills and the acts. We have both Te Mata ROI and the Commerce Commission that will be monitoring us to make sure that we do achieve those standards and what we have to do.
Yeah. And what are the implications if we're not?
There's powers within the Act to bring in monitoring and or administrative. The Minister has the powers to do that if they feel it's not being done. That's correct.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And do we know yet exactly what they're going to require us to achieve?
I guess the answer to that is partially. Some of those bills are still going through, and some of those requirements are still being written. But in general, we believe we know, certainly in terms of Te Mata ROI, in terms of the standards, and we've had discussions with for example, some of our council partners in terms of how they deal with Commerce Commission. We've had a very informative session with Orion as to their experiences with it. So we do get a bit of a feel for what is coming. Yeah.
Yeah. And what changes will it mean for our next sort of annual plan and long-term plan when it comes to structuring stuff?
That might be a bit early to say on that, councillor, but certainly the next stage after today would be to basically to nail down the water service delivery plan, which we'll be bringing back to you, which looks forward and proposes the operating model. So that will be coming back to council before we have to get the CE to sign off and submit it in September.
Okay, thanks.
Wonderful. Yanni, please, then Aaron.
Oh, cool. Based on what we heard yesterday from the water regulator, which sounded very promising about working with us, the preferred option, will that give us the best chance to work through those issues with the regulator as opposed to having a separate body?
Council, I guess the only way I can answer that is the CCO model will have a very, very, I guess, narrow focus on what they need to do. They will have to comply with the regulations, and that is that's their role. There is not a requirement for them to look broader than that. So if you are talking in terms of things that the Act specifically requires us to do, in terms of, say, water quality, some of those other, I guess, community and cultural impacts won't be as important to a CCO. It won't be a requirement. They will be required to deliver safe water, and that's where it goes from.
Okay.
So that's about the only way I can answer it, because as we've stated before, either model will work, but it's where you want to go in terms of that community influence.
So basically,
decision-making.
from what we've heard yesterday, where the water regulator is really keen to work with us on what's required for an exemption, that, you know, having the option to stay in-house gives us the greater degree of flexibility around what options we may choose if we wish to take chlorine out.
That would be my take on it, Councillor. A CCO's job, the cheapest way to ensure safe water is to put chlorine in it.
Great. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, good answer. Thank you. Aaron?
Yeah, just over some of the questions around the future delivery and changing in LTPs and annual plans. Is there going to be a requirement to standardise across the country how water is paid for, given we're an outlier, and because we're not volumetric, all the other main centres I think are, and we charge based on the capital value of the property, not your water usage, which is very odd. Will there be a requirement that we standardise across the country, and then that money's ring fenced, so then for the delivery of water, which then rules out political interference when you get a change of council and people want to spend the money on community centres rather than water pipes?
Councillor, I think there's two parts to that. Under the legislation, and correct me if I'm wrong, if a CCO must move to volumetric charging within 5 years.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah.
A CCO? What about an in-house model?
No, there's no requirement for it to do so. Sorry, not volumetric charging. It must move to a system which is not based on property value. There's a requirement in the bill
So everyone has to do
for a
that.
CCO. Not if you keep it in-house.
Why?
That's just the way the bill's written.
Okay, that really makes no sense.
I don't write the bill.
Right. Thank you, Aaron. Okay, so we have a mover and seconder. No, that's the question. Sorry. Now we go to, is there any more debate? Kelly?
Yeah, look, I'm really happy to support this, like Pauline. I think the Council 3 Waters team are first class, and this is a real testament to the work that they've done over the years. I mean, obviously there will always be challenges, but you know, there's overwhelming public support for keeping it in-house. And look, the regulator told us yesterday that our water is of the highest quality, and hopefully down the track there will be some way to improve that, and in terms of getting chlorine out. But look, I'm really supportive of this, and I think it'll be a good decision for the city.
Excellent. Aaron?
Yeah, there has been overwhelming feedback to go for an in-house model, I have great confidence in the staff. The bit that I have real issue with is the way we charge for water in Christchurch, and I think that needs to be. I'll reluctantly support going with an in-house model, because if we went with the CCO model today, we would then be put in a position that we would standardise our charging for the delivery of water. And it's alarming the difference that different people pay across the city. And then we tried to use the excess charging to curb people's use of water, where clearly the evidence is that if we went to volumetric, would make people be a lot more responsible for their water usage across the city. So I reluctantly support us doing the in-house model, but I encourage us to have that conversation with the public around the standardising of our charging system for water. I really do believe that we should be going to volumetric, and we have to be honest with our public and get them to feedback to us on that. So the sooner we can do that as a council, the better.
Okay. Anyone else want to have any five bobs worth? Yanni?
Yeah, I think it's quite timely that we're discussing this today, particularly with the new information from the water regulator, but also just hearing, the impact of decisions we made previously around the three waters, for example, with the stormwater and the benefits that that's given to a community. So I'm strongly in favour of keeping this in-house. I think the benefits are really, really apparent. That is that we get greater discretion over what we choose to do as a city to meet both the regulations, but also the community concerns around where we invest. So yeah, we've got a lot of work to do in the water space, but we've actually also been, as a city, been through a heck of a lot. If you look at the data pre-earthquake and post-earthquake, with the result of the repairs or the way the repairs were done, we do have a lot of work going forward. But as a city, we've actually done a heck of a lot of good work prior to the earthquake and post-earthquake, particularly around some of the issues on the peninsula, which again we inherited without any recognition from central government as to the cost that put on us as a city without any say. So look, I think this council, we can always strive to do better, but when we reflect on some of the really positive things that have been done, when we've kept water in-house, I think it's clear that is the best option going forward, that gives the greatest environmental benefit and the greatest benefit to delivering our water services across the three waters. So I'm very supportive of the preferred option, noting that was the majority of submitters' support as well.
Roger, thank you. Sarah?
Kia ora koutou. Thanks to staff for all of the background work that went on to get this process underway and to this point. While I'm in favour of local control and democratic control, it does come with a huge responsibility on elected members to make sure that we are doing the work. We have had advice from staff over a number of years about the state of our drinking water reticulation, for example. Our wastewater treatment plants on Banks Peninsula especially are under significant pressure and are well past the time where they need upgrading. That work has been slow, it hasn't been prioritised. That's partly through, a lack of motivation. It's partly through processes that are not helpful. But as an elected council, we need to be all over where our water's at. We need to know the state of our pipes, and we need to be prioritising all of that work, even if it means increasing rates to pay for it, because it is our responsibility to make sure that the water in the city flows and it is safe and clean and good for people to drink, and that the wastewater is taken away and that the stormwater is taken away appropriately and efficiently, and that we don't let our assets sweat in the way they have in the past. So I'm in favour of this. I think that we do need local democratic control, but we need to take responsibility for that. We can't do things like pushing out work on stormwater basins. We've seen that in the last few weeks. We can't push out our wastewater treatment on Banks Peninsula until the point whether those systems just break, because we will not be thanked for that by the communities. Thanks.
Okay, and Sam.
Thank you. I'm really pleased with this. I think the reality is that this is what we said at the very beginning of this process when DIA came down and tried to change the system entirely. We said we do not have an issue with that water in Christchurch. We have enough economy of scale as a council to deliver it effectively. And all we've done is listen to the feedback from the community, which says that we don't need a separate board set up to then create another administration on something that works so collaboratively across the council. So this is a bit like that sort of validation that actually what we said at the very beginning is where the community were at, but actually where we knew we were at with our water. The good thing about this, I think the legislation makes sense in terms of the Commerce Commission and the regulation that sits in behind it, because it prevents councils from neglecting their responsibilities. And actually, I don't think this council does, and it hasn't, because if you look at what we do through annual plans and long-term plans, we talk about deliverability. There is no point putting money on budget that cannot be spent, but actually there's better to put programs on that can be delivered. If you think about the Acro treatment plant, that's not from a will from council to not do. That literally is held up in consenting issues. So actually, if we're going to look at how we do best for the city, we should be lobbying government and advocating in every submission that comes through around how we refine the regulatory process that sits behind all of this stuff. We've got the capacity within our financial structure at council to deliver this stuff. We do it every year and we do it really well. There has never been a willingness, or an unwillingness, I should say, for the council to not deliver this stuff. It's actually about capacity and getting the work out the door. So the best thing we can do as a council is collectively unite to say, how do we speed up or fast track regulatory regimes so that stuff can be done? And I think if everyone collectively did that, we'd be in a really good place. Thanks.
Thank you, Sam. And lastly, I'm very happy for what we've done. As Sam said, we've listened to the community. It seems it is the right thing to do. The thing that worried me the most was, as we've heard, we are delivering our water at the moment, and our with the amount of money that we've got. We've got a 280% cap on the amount of money we can borrow. The thing that worried the living daylights out of me, that if we went to a CCO, they were actually allowed, and not saying they would, but they would be allowed to go to 500%. And we've got enough money borrowed at the moment, let alone have any more. So I'm more than happy to support this. So I will put that. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Thank you. That very much that is carried. Brilliant. Right. Tyler, you're up.